Together We Thrive podcast. Today, I am here with Elaine. Is it Atherton? That's how I say it.
I say Atherton only because I have to then say Atherton. So I say Atherton, so it sticks in people's mind more. What do
It
I know?
does.
I only married into the name.
You only married into it. You didn't choose it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So, Elaine, so you're a sales coach. You're a podcaster. Your kind of mantra is helping to piece together the sales puzzle for service-based businesses.
Yes. Yeah, that's me. And small businesses who are starting off or in their early years, have lost their way. Absolutely. It's a minefield, isn't it? Because let's be totally honest, you start a business, sales is not the top of your list because you're thinking, oh, I love what I do, I'm great at that. It's a hobby I turned into a business, or a host of different reasons why you start it. And then somewhere it hits you, yeah, I've got to sell here. And it's not necessarily the most comfortable thing for people. So I do a whole reframe of what that looks like. Absolutely love it, because every day is different and every person you speak to has got some different challenges. So I love it.
Yeah, likewise, absolutely. I agree with you completely. And I think that, and I often say this to people all the time, is that I don't believe a business fails because it's got bad service or it's a bad product fit. I believe businesses fails because the owners don't know how to sell it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the customer service bit can actually be one of the things where you lose sales if you haven't got that bit right. You can do all the hard work and then your follow-up's not great.
Yeah,
You can actually lose people there. So there's, as I say, the great thing is, that there's so much more to a sale than the final transaction. But the bad news is that means there's lots of different places along the way where you can lose it. But the even better news is when you know where they are, you can do something about it, and
sure.
things can look so much better.
Absolutely. So just to come back then to kind of dial back to what you were saying then about customer service, how important do you feel customer service actually is? And let me just frame that first. Why I say that is
Yeah,
because we all have bad service from products and providers that we never change away from. So, for example, you get your phone and you might have a bad deal with EE, but you stay with them, or you use Sky or Virgin Media and you know it's terrible, but you stay with them. Like, why is
yeah.
it that we stay with big organizations, but the little small businesses that need us probably a lot more, we quick to dump? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
It's a great question, actually, really great question. So a story of two halves, isn't it? Because the big guys, they offer so much, don't they? That we almost, I always say we shop with an important list. As a buyer, we've got our things that are really important to us. So if the great things outweigh the negatives, we're going to go with that. We will, even though we know it's so annoying the way they do that. But we stick with it because we think, yeah, but essentially, I love that phone, or essentially, I love that service. You've got Sky, you've got Virgin. Some people will stay with one because they like certain things about it. So we can suck it up sometimes, and because equally they've got control of a certain part of the market, haven't they? These people. So we've got less choices. When you jump into the world of small business owners, the arena is absolutely massive. So it's a buyer's market. So actually, what's going to make you different from all the other people selling what you've got? And customer service for the buyer from a small business can be absolutely top of their list. And if you're failing on that, then they think, well, I'll go somewhere else because I can get better customer service there. So it comes to us as a buyer. That's a big area. But and it's choices. People have choices. We have so many choices now, more than ever, that we've got to sort of look at why do we stand out and what makes us different, and tap into what our buyers need.
Sure.
Long answer.
No, but I
Sorry.
think it's, but I think it's a very interesting answer in the sense that so you could argue almost that as a seller, you have to create your own environment, like the Virgin Media's done, like the Sky's done, to almost future-proof it.
Yeah, good point, isn't it? Is that regardless of what service you provide, people have got a limited choice, and you're the choice because you've carved a niche yourself that actually, well, nobody can compare with it. So it's not right, but it's a fact, isn't it? That yeah, you're going to go there if you've got no choice. If someone came up with this great choice with all the options that were important to you, then it may look different.
Sure. So I mean, what we could, I suppose, what we could lead into from that then is the fact that niching is super important, and the ones that do identify how to niche early on have a greater chance of success and survival. Would you say?
Yeah, I do believe that when you two things really. When you start a business, this is, it's not I believe, I know, you've got to be clear on who you're speaking to. Who is your ideal client and who are you helping? You know, and this is all stuff you obviously do yourself. You know, the outcomes. What are you providing to people? What does all of that look like? If you haven't got that bit right, it's like throwing a pebble in the ocean, isn't it? It's like, oh, I've got this great message, and I'm just hoping someone picks it up.
Yeah.
Well, in current time more than ever, that is the huge challenge. So it's not going to happen. So you, by being more specific of who you're talking to, you're obviously going to, your messaging is going to be a lot clearer, and people are going to look at you and think, okay, they're an expert in their field and they can help me because that's the expertise I'm looking for, rather than them looking at your website and thinking, oh, I think they could help me. Could they help me? I don't know. And we all go on this reading journey of where we drop out. And if it's not clear somewhere at the start of that, is this something that's going to help me? Then we fall out of that process.
Yeah, I understand, and I think that this is one of the things that, that grates my gears. And it's something that I consistently beat the drum about, is stop using language that talks about you and start using phrases that talks about them. Do you know? Because like, they're the ones that matter. They don't care whether you've won an award or whether your granddad invented the business in 1914 while he was suffering with polio. Do you know, like that? You care about that. They don't. They don't.
Yeah.
So
True.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, in fact, why do you think, Elaine, that why do you think that businesses struggle so much to identify their ICPs, their ideal customer profiles, or their niche?
Yeah, I think it comes from a bit of nervousness, really, of, well, what if I sort of hang my hat on that and say that's my expertise and that's who I'm helping? They worry then, well, I might miss lots of other opportunities because people only think I help those people. So that it's that fear of cutting other opportunities off, I'd say, is one of the key things. And the other element to it is, when you start a business, I don't think, sweeping statement, but I don't think everybody's very confident about who exactly it is they are helping, because they might have this great product or service or whatever, and then actually it's only when somebody sits down with you and helps you eliminate who you're not helping is a great place to start. Because people will say, well, everybody could have this, and well, everybody's not going to have it, are they? So let's eliminate. If we were really clear on who doesn't want it, is sometimes a better place to start. Because then it narrows down to, actually, what you're saying to me is you're talking to that sector. Well, actually, that makes sense. And then,
true.
And so there's a level of honing in. I think some people can sort of get to 50% there and think, I'm okay with that because it feels like I'm sort of in the niche. And then the brave people, or the people who are super know who their ideal customers are, will go to the, to the complete bit and say, that. Right, that's it.
I love that. And it's something that I've used quite often in a coaching environment, for when people, you said to them, like, okay, cool, you sit down with your client and say, right, tell me what you want to achieve, and or tell me what you want. And often there is, well, I'm not quite sure, that's why I'm speaking with you. And it's like, okay, cool, let's turn this and flip it, like, what don't you want? And it's exactly the same process as what you've just described there, isn't it? It's like, who are you not helping, as opposed to who do you want to help, and let's reverse engineer from there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think we're all pretty clear on it, particularly if we've come out of another world, the corporate world, and we've started our own business, then we're all pretty clear of the things that we're not comfortable with and we don't want to do. And so it's quite easy to eliminate those things, I think.
definitely so. Why do you think they struggle with it so much, though? You know, you said about like the fear of maybe missing out. Do you really think it is FOMO, or do you think there's something that's a bit more underlining that stops them from thinking, do you know what? Let's stop and let's spend a day or a week really digging deep
Yeah.
and identifying this. Like, is there another reason, or is it literally just a case of that they just don't know?
I think it's the don't know, isn't it? It's. I mean, let's face it. Starting a business, it's like, you know. Well, I was going to say there isn't a handbook, but I suppose that's probably the complete opposite. There's about 3 million handbooks.
There's loads of handbooks, yeah.
Yeah, and the challenge is which one do you follow, and which one do you listen to? Which people do you listen to? You know, I know when I started my business, even though I've been self-employed for many years, I was really listening to lots of different things, and I'm a big believer in upskilling yourself. And then I got to a place where my head was completely mashed, and I'm thinking, well, one person's saying this and one person's saying that. So you have to sort of go with the person who's going to give you personally the best advice, because it's not. We constantly compare ourselves to other people, which is never a good thing. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to mirror someone's business, is doing something that is not trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you're setting yourself up to fail anyway. Why would we compare ourselves to someone's journey and route if it's not actually what we want anyway? We're just looking at it because we think, well, they look like they know what they're doing, and that's successful. So it's a challenge, really. I think when you start off, you really need to hitch your wagon to people who've been on the journey that you've been on to a degree, and actually are going to give you some solid, helpful advice rather than speculative, which just is, and hope's a scary one, isn't it? Hope's not, never base your strategy on a bit of hope.
It's not. I hope it's not a strategy, is it? No, but it's interesting in terms of what you said there, because I think a lot of people go through that, myself included, is that there's so many Bibles out there now, isn't this, for you to dial into, and it's like, you know, do you do like someone telling you to work only 4 hours in a week? You know, you've got someone telling you that you need to hustle and grind, and then you've got somebody else telling you that you need to 10x everything. And it's just like, I don't know whether to 10x my 4-hour work week or just sit back and then I don't know what's going on. And it's very easy for you to fall into that place where you just do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we can all say we've wasted money on something. I know I certainly threw some money at some programs, which not that there was anything wrong with the program. It was great, but it was just the wrong time for me to try and invest time in it. It was too early in my journey, and therefore I went into complete overwhelm then, because I'm like, I don't know, as you say, it's given me even more options than I had before I started. So that's hard as well, isn't it?
I definitely agree. So in terms of like piecing the sales puzzle together, you talk about the missing pieces. What are the missing pieces in your opinion? What do you think they are?
Well, for me, there are steps that you've got to look at, and we said the first one. It's knowing who. You start off with a great product service. Obviously, is the first thing, isn't it? You wouldn't be going into business if you didn't believe in what you had, and so that's your first tick. And then it's who wants this, who will it help, who needs this outcome that my product or service is providing. So it's that's step two. And then where are you going to find these people? So why would you spend 4 hours a week or a day even on a social media platform that these people that you're providing outcomes for aren't there? Why would you do that? And this goes back to who you listen to, isn't it? Oh, well, we need to be on every platform, and we don't need to be on every platform at all. We just need to be where our potential clients are. So that's those bits for me are, if you don't know that bit, don't go any further. Really get some help with that bit, because if you can't get that bit right, or you haven't got that bit right, you can throw an awful lot of time and energy and money at the next bit and not be talking to the right people. So that's fundamental. And then it's the next bit is not in any particular order. Some of these are you could swap around depending on what works for you, but one of the other elements to it is understanding why people would say no to you. So what is it, would stop people buying? What stops people buying in the first place? And I do an exercise with people on that. So through the buyer's eyes, what are they looking for? Because this is your world, this is their world. What would stop them buying in the first place? And as I said earlier, we all have an important list. I could be going to buy that wonderful fridge freezer, the American big designer fridge freezer. My important list might not be the same as the person next to me who's buying it. So you've got to know, flip it round. You've got to know as a salesperson, which we all are in business, what is on that person's important list, and how are you going? What questions have you got that you're armed with that you're going to draw that out of them, without making assumptions. That's the big bit, isn't it? We can all jump in and think, oh yeah, I can help you with that, and you think, well, actually, you really haven't got to the root of what my problem is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now you're trying to solve it for me.
Yeah. And I think that, but how often do we see that? I mean, I know you're quite active on LinkedIn, so I'm assuming you get the same messages that I probably get, where there's people every day saying, hey John, we can help you do this. Hey John, we can do this. Hey John, you look interesting. Can we connect? Because we can do this. And it's just like, oh, you don't know anything about me. How do you know what I'm looking for?
Well, it is, and it's so difficult. Because the flip side to that is you can't be a secret and a success. So you've got to be proactively doing things in your business, and that is another part of the process, isn't it? What comes up all the time is people think, well, I don't want to bother people and keep going back to them. Okay, well, look at it the other way. Do you want to be the person they think of when they need that thing? Because if they've forgotten all about you, they're not going to come back to you. They're going to come back to the people that are still on their radar.
Sure.
So all of these things are really important, and the follow-up is key, isn't it? What does happen in your process when people get in touch with you via your website or any social media platform? What's your next steps to that? Because if it's ad hoc, it's not going to work. Ad hoc is not our friend in business.
No, it's not
at all. It's really not. We've got to create a process that we know we're supporting those people. This goes back to, as we said, our customer service, isn't it? What will that person get? What does it look like in their world? And what are the next steps? So all of that is really key.
Definitely. So no, I call it process and rhythm. Because a sporadic approach doesn't bring consistent results, does it? As you've just identified. So what you're saying is that what is it that you do? Who is it you do it for? What's going to stop them from buying it? And then how are you going to follow up with them?
It's exactly. And if I was slotting the step 3 in, which follows on to the other 2 things, is what outcomes are you providing? Are you really, really clear on the outcomes you're providing, and not through your eyes, but through the eyes of your buyer? So what does that look like? So I say to my clients, right, get a huge piece of paper, A3 paper, and in the middle you put your spider's web of all the things that you're going to help people with those outcomes. What are the outcomes that your product or service provides? And understand that actually you could have 3 services and that they're all potentially providing different outcomes. So this goes back to when people put a message out there and they say, well, I put a post out there, and actually people don't tap into it, and they think because that you're trying to be too generic with that post and tap into all the people you help, when actually one of your services may be very specific. So it's not going to appeal to everybody. So all you do, you then do a post on that for that audience, for that service.
Of course. So
that the people are reading. I'm saying this all this to you, all this, but they're reading it saying, "Oh, this is me. Yeah, this is me." They must be in my head when they've said this, because this is me. And we know when we've got something right, when that's what people are doing, that I can relate to that. Yeah.
Of course. So no, I mean, I think it's really fascinating, and I think that it's all about being humble, isn't it? You know, like no matter what you know, there's always more to learn, and things are changing, times adapting. So I think it's always, I'm just super curious. Like I want to know,
Mm,
like if something works a certain way, I want to know why. I don't want to just know the outcome. I want to know like what is it that you've done and why have you done it that way, and what makes it tick. Like, and I think that
yeah,
I think that being curious, especially as a salesperson, is one of the
yeah.
superpowers. I mean, would you agree on that?
I totally agree, and that's one of the steps of this process is what are your great questions? You know, what are they that are going to get the answers that you need to be able to help that person? So, you know, again, it goes back to the ad hoc, isn't it? If you've got someone who's contacted you and they're interested in what you do, you know, the worst thing you can do is just think, oh, this is great. I'll just see what they have to say. Well, that's it's not how it works, is it? That person's reached out to you because they think potentially you're the person who's going to be able to help them. And you know, you as the buyer, you would expect then that person to ask you some questions to get a real understanding of what it is you're looking for, because actually you may not be the right person for them, which you know is absolutely a possible outcome.
Yeah.
But equally, if you are, how do you really get underneath what it is that's stopping them in their business, and giving them best advice and offering them solutions. And even within the, you know, those questions, for me there's 5 steps of how you look at that you don't actually offer the solution until you get to step 5, which is a lot of people guilty of,
Mm.
as we said earlier,
Yeah.
throwing that solution in straight away.
I often say that it's like a doctor, isn't it? And if a doctor tried to prescribe you some medicine without actually doing any fact find on you first, well, they'd get closed down for malpractice, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, that one. One of my funny stories is, I feel like I'm always in the electrical shops, but clearly, obviously, I'm not at the moment. But I went into to buy a new kettle because, quite simply, I put it on, it wasn't working, and I thought, this was months ago. So dashed in to the local shop when you could, and I have an American fridge freezer. I had it quite a few years, and there was a new model. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to have a look while I'm here. So of course the salesperson jumped on over and said, yes, it does this, it does that, and you know, spent minutes telling me all the wonderful things. And what do you think? And I said, well, actually, I'm just heading to the kettles. I just stopped out of curiosity. It was, you know, it's like you didn't actually ask me anything at all before you launched into
just jumped in. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just, yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it?
So do you think, Elaine, do you think that is because they have had is it because they've had bad training or no training?
I think it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? Really, and the psychology of the buyer for me is not looked at often enough. And I think for those of us, you know, like you as well, you will absolutely you do that. We have to get into the heads of our buyers. We have to generically understand our buyers, but equally then when we're faced with that person, we then have to get into, well, what is that person's challenges, what's important to them, what outcomes are they looking for from this service or whatever that looks like. So I don't, I think unfortunately there's some of the trainings just, well, probably dated,
Yeah.
as well, and equally it's just not in the real world of the buyers have more choices now than ever. And what's going to make you different, and what, you know, I think the extra mile is the icing on the cake for a lot of companies now, that just do that extra level of when they've done something for you, that they then contact you and say, are you happy with that? All of that is just, it's sad to say, it's more the exception than the rule now, isn't it? Which is not good. But when you get that, you're like, wow, they called me up and asked me, was I happy with that service that I had?
And not only that, I think it represents a real, I call that second money, because it gives you a real fantastic opportunity to help them again.
Yes.
And I think that most people, they'll, like, I think it's very prevalent in like the digital space, where, especially like a website, they'll build you a website, they'll hand it over to you, and then they'll run away as fast as possible because they don't want you to have any problems with it. rather than going back to them, within 24 hours and saying, hey, Elaine, we've got a new website. Is it doing everything that you thought it would do? What's missing? What's not working for you right now?
Yeah.
Let's look at how we can get it better for you. And, really develop that relationship to another level.
Yeah, which absolutely means, doesn't it, that you are going to recommend that person to somebody else, because so it's worth its weight in gold, isn't it? I bought a new laptop last October, and I had in mind what I wanted, and I was very clear. It was I did it on a phone call with someone who was recommended to me. Never met him. Great service, really good. And he asked me loads of questions what I wanted to use it for, and blah blah blah. Anyway, I actually bought a laptop that was completely different to the one I had in my mind, because what he said made perfect sense. Is it, have you considered this? Have a look, see what you think. In his mind, it didn't matter to him, because actually they were all much the price. But he was giving me best advice, and I listened to that because he was the expert, and I knew he had my interests at heart, because he wanted me to be able to say, I'm really happy with that. Yes, and of course I'll recommend it to other people.
Of course. Do you think you paid attention to him because he was the expert, or because he actually paid attention to you?
A bit of both, really, but more importantly, because he listened to me, I'd say, because there's people who are experts who will just talk at you, won't they, and try and convince you. And I say my golden rule is never insult someone's choice. The worst thing you can do is say to somebody, oh, I don't know why I've chosen that, that's terrible. And you might think that, but you get underneath why they've made those decisions. But to insult someone's choice, like saying to someone, why on earth did you buy that car? They're just awful. And you think, right, well, you've really got people's hackles up already, haven't you, when you've insulted a decision they've made. Without actually, without doubt, it was because he listened. He asked questions, and he listened to my answers, and then gave me some solutions.
Sure. Why do you think companies are not paying more attention to that in the training? I like I forget who came up with this kind of methodology or this theory about, you're either unconscious and incompetent, or you're consciously incompetent. And I love that, and I use that all the time. And is it the fact that they are just unconsciously and incompetent that they don't even think about it?
Yeah. I do you know what? That's $1 million question, isn't it? And I think there's some of it, training wise, has sadly got lost because of funding and cost in training. And yet when you flip it round, the investment in training is absolutely massive to a business, isn't it? We say it to small business owners, and a lot of them do invest in getting different types of skills that they need. And yet, we can have larger companies who are jumping on the back of the fact that, well, we're big, we've got a great reputation. But as we said at the start, people still got choices, and they might be choosing you because you're the only choice they've got. But when they've got another one, they may not choose you. You absolutely, you can't, as the old expression is, you can't sit on your laurels and think we've got this and we're okay. Because we've seen big companies fall with that
many times,
really.
Repeatedly, over and over again. It happens though, don't we? We see the Blockbuster fails, we see the Nokia fails, we see the Arcadia Group fails. We see these things happen over and over and over again because people fail to innovate, they fail to train. And then you look at really good examples like Apple, for example. I read recently that Apple invest in, like, their sales team have 45 minutes of training every single day before they even go out on the shop floor. And obviously at the minute we're not on shop floors, but they have 45 minutes of sales training every single day. And that's $1 trillion business. Like, surely there's a clue there for people to see.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's within that, which is they're clearly, great at it, is it's a very transient market, isn't it? Sales and buying, and particularly at the moment, in the last 12 months, people's buying habits have, shifted massively. So are you in tune with that? If you're, as a company, if you're not in tune with how people are buying and how they're feeling, which is, for me as a small business owner, I had to look at my offerings and think, right, okay, some of this I did face to face, it's now online, some of it I already had online. So we have to, there's no point in having this model that you think, well, this is great. Well, it is great, the content's great, but if it's not going to where your audience are and currently how they're feeling, then actually it's, it might need a little bit of a revisit, really.
Sure, no, I agree, and I think that also there's probably, I'm just thinking then as you were speaking, like the whole sales role has changed completely. Whereas we used to have one that was probably a red personality type that was fast to act, who took the lead. When now actually it's a little bit more of an analytical role, isn't it? You've got to be more of a scientist.
And
explore and test and get
the
data, haven't we? I think that, so the roles changed quite significantly as well, hasn't it, over the last probably decade and a half?
No, you're right. And I think I know I talk a lot about small business owners, but obviously it's where I spend most of my time. And I think, some of the struggles they come to me with is, I'm not great at sales. I don't see myself being a salesperson. And it's how you reframe that, because nobody will ever say to you, listen, you've been far too helpful, I'm not happy, I'd like to complain about you. Will they ever? It's not going to happen. So do you like to help people? Absolutely. Do you like to make a difference to the people who buy from you? Yes, definitely. Right, we're going to work on that now, and we're going to show you how you can convert that into sales with some processes and some steps that make that happen in the way that works for you and works for your clients.
Of course,
is the key.
And I think that is the thing, is that I hear the same things all the time. So obviously it's not just a Sheffield thing, or do you know, a Wirral thing. This is a global thing. People, I'm not I'm not a salesperson, no. And it's like, I often say to people, I say, well, have you ever had a job? And they're like, yeah. Did you have an interview? Yeah. Well, then you sold yourself to them. Well, that's different, isn't it? I'm like, no, it's exactly the same. Do you know, are you in a relationship? Yes. Okay. You sold yourself to them. Do you know, like everything we do in life, in my business, is selling. Do you know, and so it's just the way that you say is reframing it. Elaine, talk to me about this. Like, I saw on your LinkedIn profile that, you're going back for quite a number of years, but it says you started with £130 kit bag, selling doing the direct sales business, which then you turned into a £4 million business.
I know, absolutely crazy. Wow. Isn't it crazy? So there I was, mum at home. I'd been in banking before that, and so I left there, and then I'd say two young children. I thought, I'd just quite like to do something that gets me out the house here and helps me use my brain. And so there I was, bought this kit, and back in the day in banking, it wasn't salesy at all. So whereas things have changed, but then it was all about customer service. So I didn't have any experience of selling at all. So for me, when I went out with this kit, it was okay. Obviously the training was brilliant, and so I then did more research and thought, well, okay, I've got these great things. What I need to understand is why people would want them and what they're looking for. So that's sort of where I started anyway. So I as much as anything, I absolutely loved it. So I started selling, but as I just said, in the way of helping people. So if I help them make a decision whether that's a yes or a no, but if I educate them in some of the things about skincare and all those things, they're going to have make an educated choice whether it's for them or not. So it sort of went from there really, and it built it, and then I ended up building a team, and it grew and grew and grew to over 1,000 people. If I had to wrap up what all my learnings were that in that time were, is it goes back to what I talk about now, is everybody is different. So you've got to know your buyer in front of you. You've got to understand what's important to people. You've got to appreciate that we're not all the same. You've got to be a good listener, because the reason why I've got two ears and one mouth, isn't there? It's not about interjecting and trying to be pushy. It's not about that at all. It's about helping people achieve what they want to achieve. So unbeknownst, I suppose, at the time, all of that was happening, which then took me to great success, because I wasn't focused on what I wanted. I was focused on what the people in my team wanted. One person might want £200 a month extra, someone else might want 2,000. So let's look at how that's going to happen and what time you've got to invest in that. So it was a huge, really great time, and huge amounts of experience and great times from that. So yeah, definitely my foundations were built there without doubt.
Sure. And I think that a lot of the real transferable skills, especially in selling, comes from that direct selling environment, doesn't it? Because it shows you how to have a work ethic. It shows you how to get rejection. It shows you how to communicate effectively. I started in a very similar place, knocking on doors, selling gas and electricity. And the time when I started, we were the same. We were doing millions of pounds a year and it was just, again, it was a market space that had just been deregulated. So our objections wasn't about competing with other companies. It was about people thinking we had to dig their garden up to change the gas supply, things like that.
Yeah.
But it definitely gave you work ethic, and it taught you how to get them rejections. And I think that it's like the old days of picking a phone up and cold calling you out of the yellow pages. It actually built you and shaped you and built character. And I think that that's missing a little bit now, isn't it?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right that the good thing about current times, I guess, is the Zoom scenario is a really good way of getting to know somebody a little bit that perhaps you wouldn't get that on the phone, would you? So what's the difference between hopping on a Zoom with someone for half an hour and than on a phone? I would rather, if it's going to be a meaningful building rapport relationship, then it's better on Zoom, because you can get a bit more interaction. And obviously, in another world, it would be great to meet face to face with people. But you're right, it is about that. It depends on what your role is, I guess, doesn't it? For me, doing what I do, it's really important to build that rapport. If you're selling in sales in a different way, which I guess some of the people you work with as well, it's a quicker turnover of sales, isn't it? It's more action and doing. So it probably looks different, I guess.
Why do you think people struggle with sales so much? Like we said earlier, like people saying, well, I'm not a sales kind of person, or just generally people that's involved in sales who struggle. Like, why do you think they struggle?
Well, I'd probably say the top of the list is the fear of rejection, isn't it? Is what they hate. Is what if that person says no? They're putting themselves in a vulnerable position, because they are getting a yes or a no, or they've had some bad experiences of it. I think it's another. We've all been on the end of bad experiences selling. I don't think anyone, I'm sure you're the same, Joe, when you look back to when you first started out, you think, oh God, that wasn't the best way of doing that. There's all sorts of cringeworthy moments that we've probably all had. But I think from a small business owner's aspect, when I talk to them, it's that fear of rejection, and actually the fact that they're selling themselves now. And it can feel different when you're selling a product for another company. That you haven't created that. So people say no, it's okay, it's not personal, but it becomes a lot more personal when it's you, doesn't it? And you're your brand.
I often say to people, there's a name for people that don't like rejection. It's called being bad at sales. Because we have to learn to develop that ability to take the rejections.
Well, we do, and the point is, it's funny enough. My blog post this morning, actually, on LinkedIn, was about the no's we get, and actually, what do we do with those no's? Because a no is not always a no forever. A no is sometimes a maybe, isn't it? So that's where, going back to that list of important things that we should have on our list, is how do we follow up with those, maybes? What do we do? Because if we just think, oh well, there you go, that one's gone, then that's a big hole of missed opportunities, isn't it? So that's part of our process, should absolutely be, how do we keep in touch with those people that are nurturing, or maybe a yes in the future?
Yeah, definitely so. And I mean, one of the things that I don't know if you do the same, but one of the things that I teach people with that is to build a cadence, so that maybe day one is the call, day three is an email, day 5 is an engagement on social media, day 7 is I'm going to send you an article that I think you might find interesting, day 10 is I'm going to leave you a voice note on LinkedIn, day 26 is another call. And it's about having that cadence to stay in touch. And as you said earlier on, it's so that when they're ready to pull the trigger, you're the one that they're thinking of.
Absolutely. And with that, as absolutely you rightly said, is how do you manage that? Because being organized is really key, isn't it? Is if you haven't got some sort of process most of us who've worked in the corporate world have been very familiar with CRM systems and all of that, but actually as a small business owner, what do you do that keeps you on track and have all that? I do have something I use. I've got a really good connection who's created something for micro businesses, so I use that because it keeps me on track. Because otherwise, again, it's the ad hoc thing, isn't it? If you haven't got something to keep you on track, it's easy to miss.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of a CRM. I use HubSpot, which is it's just an incredible tool. And I think that like anyone that's serious about their business, it's the pulse. It's the thing that's going to keep your business moving and keeping that data centralized in one place. What do you use, Elaine?
It's a company called Proactive, and
Tony.
Tony, well, you know him, brilliant, and he's created that from scratch, so
looks great.
I don't know when he started.
Looks really good.
Yeah, it is. And the great thing is, because it's for micro businesses, it's very, very user friendly. So a lot of people get a bit overwhelmed, don't they, by the bigger systems, because it's like, oh God, where do we start? But because that's very user friendly for micro businesses, it's a great way to.
He's over your way as well, is he? I believe, Tony.
He is not too far away. Yes, that's how we met. Someone introduced us, and that's pretty much the same. We started our business journey roughly around the same time. So
Again, another, and I think that's the good thing, isn't it, about again, this capability is that you can be 150 miles away or whatever it is. I mean, you could be anywhere in the world for this matter right now, and you can build these relationships, which is brilliant. It's really, really good. Just to come back to the sales side then. So I mean, like what's the best advice you would say? I know we've gone through quite a few different things there already about knowing what it is that you do and who it's for. But like I saw one of the things that you'd put on your LinkedIn profile, which is the 7 essentials for entrepreneurs. Does that cover some of these, like the who, the what, the how, the where, the follow up and stuff like that as well, or is there something else in there that people should be doing?
No, pretty much it covers that. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Because you can look at processes, and there's lots of layers within processes, and the point in my world anyway is you've got to consider each step, and you've got to think some of those steps you're going to invest a lot of time in. Others are I've looked at that, I do that, and that's a tick for me. So the probably the bit that's not being mentioned here is analyzing and reviewing what you're doing, which is another great miss, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, I do all this and I do all that. So what results are you getting from that? And if we don't plan in that time, you can guarantee it's a thing that never happens. And actually, it's like if you're working in a corporate world and your manager was saying to you at the end of the month, so let's look at your results, you would absolutely make sure you had them, wouldn't you? And we do it. We've got our own business, and we think, oh yeah, I'll do that another time. It has to be planned in time, doesn't it, to look at it? Because there's the sort of key in that is, what are you doing that's working and you should do more of? What isn't working and you need to stop? And what is it that you may you should start that you're not
Yeah.
doing already?
Yeah, we call
There's
it stop,
some really
start,
good
continue,
ones.
don't we?
Yes, yeah, there's all sorts of different phrases for these things, but it's so important, particularly the last 12 months has meant people have really had to dig deep into what they do and think, right, that's got to go. Or, can I take that online? Where are those buyers now? What's their world look like? How do I need to change this to actually fit into their world now? Or is it something I just need to park and think of, bridge that gap with something else?
Yeah,
Do I need a new service? Do I need a new package that's going to help people over these next 6 months? What does that look like?
absolutely, absolutely. No,
Mm.
that's fascinating. I mean, there's I'm sure we could probably sit and talk about sales all day, the strategies and the methodologies behind it. Like what's the best advice for somebody that's either, struggling with sales or just coming into business? Like what's the best advice that you would tell them? What's the first thing that they should look to do?
The very first thing, which, as it said earlier, is be absolutely clear on who it is that you're helping. Build that, we call it an avatar, don't we? But build that client avatar of this person or these people that you're helping, and and remember why you started your business. What was the whole point of, I started my business because I wanted to make a difference in what is it that you're trying to achieve here? Because the more you go on, the more you move away from that, because you get embroiled in all that, and this, that, and the other. And actually that should be at the very core of everything that you're doing. What is it you're planning to achieve, without question? Because if you're talking to the wrong people, it's far better to talk to 10 people who want what you've got than 100 who don't. And
Yes.
it's so important, because it will absolutely suck the life out of you if you are putting all this work in and putting all this stuff out there, if it's not being read or picked up by the people that you're talking to.
No, I agree.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, no, I second that. I really do. I mean, it's one of the things that I work on. But the first step is, I call it defining your landscape.
Yeah,
And
great.
it's
Mm.
it is exactly that. It's like, what value do you bring, and who do
Yeah,
you bring the value to? And
yeah,
if you get that
yeah,
bit right, everything else becomes so much easier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, because it's that sort of thing, isn't it? If you're writing a post and you're trying to appeal to 10 audiences, it's just not meaningful, is it? But as soon as you get the wording right and you think, in my head, I am now speaking to that person, it just really works. And particularly as well, if you're looking at someone else to do your social media for you,
Mm.
if you're not clear, they've got no hope
We've got
of
no
picking
hope,
that
have
up and doing it
they?
for
Yeah.
you. No,
Do you
no.
feel that there's a certain worry that if they put themselves to stand out, that they might get exposed to some negativity? Or do you think that's one of the things that gets in the way, where they're thinking, well, if I really go out in this one niche and
Yeah.
start becoming the expert in that niche, what if people start criticizing me? Do you think that that's
You
something
know,
that's going to hold?
I think it's a really good point, John, because we've seen it. I've seen it. Have you seen it? That you think people have annihilated people, which I find appalling, to be absolutely
Agreed.
honest with you, and think, it's absolutely unnecessary to do that. So yeah, I think you are right, but because particularly if you're new to the LinkedIn world, if you see things like that, it's like, the tall poppy thing, isn't it? I don't want to be the tall poppy if someone's going to chop my head off. So it's I think you're spot on with that, and it's something I had forgotten about, really, because I did at the start. I absolutely was quite nervous about that myself when I
Right.
first started posting massively, but
Yeah.
as you go on, you become less
You get used to it. Yeah.
worried, because actually, well, it also comes from the fact and think, well, I know what I do, and I equally know it's not going to appeal to everybody,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So if it's not right for somebody, that's
That's
their
fine.
prerogative.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that comes with confidence, doesn't it?
I think you're right. I absolutely, I think you're right. Do you think that there's also a worry that it's almost reverse of that, where if you put yourself out there and it's not that people criticize you, but you don't get any engagement as well? Do you think that's also an issue, that people think, oh, I'm not going to do it because what if no one likes it at all?
Well, there's the whole LinkedIn algorithm thing, isn't there, which is, you know, a debate for another time, I guess. But yeah, absolutely, there is that, and it's great to have a cluster of people that you can support each other on things, because it's a terrible thing, isn't it, when you think you put it there and you think, oh, nobody's even answered it. But equally, it's all, you know, you can't take it too personally, because one, it's an algorithm thing, and two, you know, it's a moment in time. People see things, and we've all got busy lives. You know, people may just not have seen it, and it may be, the content may have been your best post ever. So hold it for another time and think, yeah, you can use that again. It's okay to use things again, repurpose them, isn't it?
Yeah, no, repurposing is massively powerful as well, and I think it's one of the things that most people don't realize how powerful repurposing can be. I mean, I one of the things I say to people all the time, and I see this myself, is that, you know, don't post content for likes and engagement. Post the content because it brings real value to other people. Now, just because someone's not liking it or commenting on it or sharing it doesn't mean that they're not seeing it. Because I'll tell you now, I get people that message me and who's become clients of mine who's never liked a single thing that I've shared, but they see every single one of them. And they've come to me, and they said, "Hey, John, listen, you know, I've seen what you posted, really resonated with me. You know, I'd be like, are you open for? Can we have a chat?" And I think that it's very easy for us to live in that world where we think that the likes, because, like, you know yourself, you might do a post and it gets 150 people that like it. You can't pay your mortgage with 150 likes, though. You know?
No, absolutely. No, it's so true. It is so true. And there's a lot of lurkers in the nicest possible way.
I agree. I use the same phrase. Use the same phrase. Elaine, it's been absolutely wonderful. Elaine, is there anything that I have not asked you that you think the listeners or the watchers can get real value from?
No, I think we've, I mean, as you say, we could talk about it all day. I think we've probably encompassed most of it there. As you say, we're both very passionate about what we do and how we can help people who are feeling overwhelmed and stuck. There is always help out there. It's just asking the right people, isn't it?
Of course it is. Brilliant. Elaine, where can people find out more about you, your podcast, the things that you do? Like, where's the best place for them to go to?
Two places, really. There's my website, which is all of the W's, summitup.com, and that's the number 2 and summit with 2 M's in the middle.com. So you can find me there and all the different things I offer. And details of my podcast are also on there. And then, as you said earlier, I'm always on LinkedIn. So that's Elaine Atherton on LinkedIn. You'll find me there as well.
Excellent. What we'll do as well for everyone else, we'll put it in the description. So wherever they're listening to or watching this, we will put it in the description there as well. Brilliant. Well, I hope everyone that's watching this or listening to this has got as much value as I have. You know, Elaine's got a huge amount of experience there. She's done some amazing things. And I think that that's the thing that counts in this world, especially in the sales game. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are teaching sales with the greatest of intent, but they've not got anything to back it up, you know, like, and I think that there's a lot of real good trainers who's trying to teach sales. And I don't know about you, but I think I speak for both of us, Elaine, that we're not trainers, we're salespeople who happen to train.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. No, very well put, John, very well put.
Elaine, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, have a great day. We'll speak to you another time.
Oh, thanks for having me, John. It's been a real joy. Thank you.